Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2017 Alfa Romeo GIULIA. The customer complaint on this vehicle is there is a lot of white smoke coming out of the tailpipe while the engine is running. The customer also stated that the engine is running rough. This vehicle was towed to us. The tow truck driver just dropped it off. When I went to the vehicle to look at it, I realized that the battery was dead, so I had to put a new battery in it. I drove it around the shop, we got it on the lift, so here we are. The first thing we're gonna do is I'm going to start the engine so we can confirm the customer's complaint. Let's start the engine to see if this engine is gonna smoke. Let's see if we're gonna have a lot of white smoke coming out of the tailpipe. And after that, we're gonna talk about what directions we're gonna go so we can figure out what's causing this engine to smoke. So now let's confirm the customer's complaint. Let's go in the vehicle and start the engine. So we have our key fob here. I'm gonna start the engine. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and the check engine light is on the dash. So let's go to the back of the vehicle and see if this engine is gonna smoke. Let's see if we have smoke coming out of the tailpipe. So check this out. This engine is smoking. We have a lot of smoke coming out of the tailpipe. And this smoke smells like burnt oil. Check this out. The engine is shaking, the engine is misfiring. So let's go under the hood and see what we got. So the engine shakes a little bit, it shakes momentarily. We have coolant in this surge tank. We have coolant over here. This is a little bit low. So we have coolant in both surge tanks. The engine is shaking a little bit. So what do you guys think is causing this engine to smoke like this? It smells like burnt oil. So I'm gonna rev up the engine a little bit. Instead of going inside the vehicle, I'm gonna use this rod to push the accelerator pedal. Oh, check this out. As I accelerate the engine, there's a lot more smoke coming out of the tailpipe. This is crazy. And this is what the customer is complaining about. So what do you guys think is causing this? Let's rev this one more time. Check this out. Ooh, that's a lot of white smoke. This thing is smoking like crazy. What the heck? Let me turn off the engine. Wow, this is smoking very badly. Wow, look how much smoke we have in the shop now. This is crazy. Sorry, Zach. That's okay. Wow. I won't start it again. This thing is smoking like crazy. Man. All right, so we have confirmed the customer's complaint. I'm going to connect the scan tool to the vehicle and then I will bring you guys back up. We are back in the vehicle. The key is on. I have the scan tool connected to the vehicle. I'm gonna bring it up. So we have confirmed the customer's complaint. The scan tool has identified the vehicle Fiat/Alfa Romeo. So right here. So an Alfa Romeo is technically a Fiat. So we're going to click on Alfa Romeo. Let's just do a standalone diagnostics. Let's see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. So let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see what we got. We have 10 codes in the BCM, 1 code in the ECM. So let's list these control units. Let's click on list. So we have 1 trouble code in the engine computer. The code that we have in the engine computer is P00E100, and it says charge air cooler, CAC, coolant temperature sensor, circuit high. So it looks like the charge air cooler temperature sensor circuit is open. This is usually caused by an open circuit or a defective sensor. So this is pretty easy and straightforward. I thought I was gonna see misfire codes in the engine computer, but we don't have misfire codes in the engine computer. We have 3 trouble codes in the transmission control unit: park by wire, unattended, out of park position. Now, the tow truck driver told me that he had to manually put the transmission in neutral because the battery was dead. There is a bolt on the transmission that you have to tighten to get the transmission out of park. So I believe this is what's causing these codes to be set. We have 5 codes in the ABS control unit, and then we have 10 codes in the instrument panel control unit. Engine control module missing message. So as you can see, we have a bunch of trouble codes in these control units. So the scan tool has all these codes saved. I'm gonna clear all these codes. Let's see which ones come back right away. So the one in the engine computer came back. The ones in the transmission control unit came back. Yeah, these will come back because the transmission was put in neutral manually. So we know that. Now, the code that we have in the engine computer will not cause this vehicle to smoke the way it's smoking right now, okay? The smoke that we saw on the tailpipe is something different from this code over here, okay? So it's not this code that's causing the engine to smoke. The smoke we saw on the tailpipe can be caused by a leaking turbo, worn out piston rings. I don't think that was coolant leaking in the combustion chamber, because the smoke that came out of the tailpipe smelled like burnt oil. Okay, so it looks like these codes over here will not help us diagnose this vehicle. Okay, so this is a problem. This is a problem, but it's not what's causing this vehicle to smoke. So now let's go under the hood and do some tests so we can figure out what's causing this vehicle to smoke. I'm gonna get the scan tool out of the way. The scan tool is not really helpful right now. Let's go under the hood and see what we got. I'm gonna remove the engine cover. The engine cover just pops off like that. So I'm gonna get this out of the way. I see oil around the front of the engine. This is odd. This tube over here is wet. It looks like we have an oil leak over here. I'm gonna undo this clamp off camera and then I will bring you guys back up. I undid this clamp off camera. So now I'm gonna disconnect this tube. Oh, check this out. We have oil in this air inlet tube. There's a lot of oil over here. Do you guys see this? Now, are we supposed to have oil in here? Check this out. You see how much oil we have in this tube? This is a problem. Now, my question to you is, what's causing oil to be inside the tube that's between the air filter box and the turbo. Where is this oil coming from? Okay, there's a lot of oil in this tube. So we have a lot of oil in this tube over here. So where is that coming from? Now, the other thing I want to do is I would like to remove my ignition coil. I want to get the spark plug removed. Let's look at the spark plug and see if it's fouled. Let's remove the coil. Now at this point, I kind of have an idea of what's going on with this engine. So we got our ignition coil removed. This bolt stays on the coil. So now let's remove our spark plug. Let's look into the spark plug hole. There's no oil in it, so that's good. So let's undo our plug. So here comes our spark plug. Wow. Look how foul this spark plug is. This plug is filled with oil. Check this out. So there's oil being pumped inside the cylinder. Okay. So where do you think this oil is coming from? So the smoke that we saw is oil being pumped inside the cylinder. Now the fact that we have a pool of oil inside this air inlet tube, this tells me that the turbo is defective on this Alfa Romeo. So the turbo is leaking oil. So it's dumping oil in the intake manifold and in the air inlet tube. So oil is being dumped in the intake manifold and eventually it's going in the cylinders, fouling the spark plugs and causing the engine to smoke. Okay, we don't have to check our ignition coils, we don't have to check fuel delivery. Based on experience, I can tell that this turbo is bad. The issue on this vehicle is a turbo. Okay, now if you still have a question, if you're still not 100% sure that the issue is the turbo, my question to you would be, where is this oil coming from? Now you might say the PCV tube. If it were the PCV tube, because there's a tube over here that can leak, but this PCV tube is not going to leak oil this much. Okay, so this is 100% a turbo issue. Okay, yeah, so and I'm sure all the spark plugs are fouled just like this one. Okay, this is very bad. So I mean, I diagnosed this vehicle basically based on the experience I have working on a couple of these vehicles in the past. Even when the vehicle got dropped off, when I first started it, I knew that this turbo is out. So I just wanted to show you, if you have an Alfa Romeo that's smoking and if you see oil in the inlet tube and your plugs are fouled, your issue is most likely a defective turbo. Now, this vehicle, I believe, only has 80,000 miles. Let's go in the vehicle so we can see how many miles we have on this vehicle. I think this vehicle only has 80,000 miles, if I remember correctly. Let me turn the key on. So right here, this vehicle has 90,000 miles. Actually, I was wrong. 90,000 miles. 90,804 miles. That's the mileage on this Alfa Romeo. Okay, so at this point we are done with our diagnosis. Okay, we are done here. This vehicle is going to need a new turbo, so I'm going to tighten this spark plug. Now you might say, what about if it's the piston rings? If the piston rings were the issue, we wouldn't have oil on this tube over here. Okay, so it's not the piston rings that are leaking on this one. And it's very common for these turbos to fail on these Alfa Romeos. So at this point, I am going to put the ignition coil back on. I did talk to the customer already when the vehicle got dropped off, because he told me that the vehicle was smoking a lot of white smoke, and the smoke that was coming out of the tailpipe smelled like burnt oil. I told him your issue will most likely be a defective turbo. Now, when I told him he might need a turbo, he was a little bit on the fence about fixing it, because he said if the repairs will be expensive, I will probably just get rid of the car. So I don't know if he's going to fix it. He's probably just gonna get rid of it. We don't know. At this point, we are done with our diagnosis. Okay, so we are done. Turbo is leaking. I don't see what other test we can do. And I can guarantee you, if you think it's the PCV tube, we can disconnect this tube and block it. And when we start the engine again, there will be smoke coming out of the tailpipe. So it's not this PCV system leaking, okay? So don't write in the comment that it might be the PCV system. It's not, okay? And it's not the piston rings. This turbo is bad. Actually, let's go to the tailpipe. Look over here. We have oil coming out of the tailpipe. So this hand over here is dry. So I'm going to touch the tailpipe. Check this out. There's oil actually. So oil was coming out of the tailpipe. You see this? And same thing on both tailpipes. So my little pinky finger over here is dry. So I'm going to touch the tailpipe here. Check this out. This is oil coming out of this. All right, so we are done. This Alfa Romeo is going to need a turbo. I got the Alfa Romeo up in the air. Let's do a quick visual inspection under the vehicle before we wrap up this video. So our suspension components look good. Everything is tight down here. There is a big engine cover under the engine, so I'm not gonna bother removing this. Everything is tight. It looks really dry down here. This is good. I mean, it looks good down here. The transmission is dry. So this is the bolt that the tow truck driver screwed in to push this lever over here to put the transmission in neutral manually. So over here, everything looks dry, everything looks good. This vehicle looks good underneath. But look at the exhaust. Look over here. This is oil. You see this? There's a lot of oil leaking from the exhaust. So this is engine oil. And we should not have engine oil coming out of the exhaust pipe. Okay, everything else doesn't look too bad. Okay, there's a lot of oil in these exhaust pipes. All right, so now let's wrap up this video. All right guys, that's it. I'm gonna leave this right over here. We are done with this Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, the customer decided not to fix this vehicle. He told me that replacing the turbo is not in his budget right now. He is going to sell the vehicle as is. He asked if I could keep the vehicle here in my lot. I told him that I don't have enough room to keep this vehicle here. He has to come pick it up. So he's gonna send a tow truck to come pick it up and tow it to his house. He's gonna have it on his driveway and he's gonna put a for sale sign on the vehicle. He told me if he finds a customer, he's gonna sell it. But if he doesn't find a customer, he might have to fix it in the future. So if he cannot sell it, we might have to fix it in the future. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.